Tata Nexon. Well, this car has a lot of fan following both offline as well as online. Launched in 2017, this car found a decent number of buyers, while the YouTube comment section is almost always filled with praises for the Tata Nexon. Now, earlier this year, Tata Motors brought in the updated Nexon, which has cosmetic enhancements, new mechanicals and some extra features. So we have the Tata Nexon petrol manual with us. Let's find out what is new. Before we get started, here's a fun fact. The engines of the Nexon have been developed by Tata Motors and AVL. Now, AVL is an Austrian company which has also developed the 2.2-litre diesel engine that is used on some Mahindra and Tata cars. Some cosmetic changes have been made to the Tata Nexon, and thankfully it doesn't look like a grown-up Indica anymore. It gets new headlamps which are slimmer in design, it gets a new gloss black grille, it gets a new bumper with skid plates, and over here you get these tri-aero elements which are borrowed from the Nexon EV and they remind you of the Mercedes logo somehow. Coming to the side, well, the Nexon now gets a new design for the 16-inch alloy wheels. The mirrors are finished in black and there's a dual tone color theme on offer on the top variants. Along with that, there's a white strip running across the side of the car, but the C-pillar is now finished in black. The Nexon also gets grey colored roof rails over here, and there's a shark fin antenna, again finished in gloss black. Tata Motors has made some changes at the rear also. So the tail lights now get an updated design which have the Union Jack in them for some reason. Along with that, this car also gets a new rear bumper. But the pre-facelift Nexon used to come with the fog lamp over here that is missing on this car, the updated model. And Tata Motors has also added the Nexon word over here in chrome lettering. Along with that, there's a reverse camera below the Tata logo and there's a request sensor over here to open the boot. The boot is decently shaped for a car of this segment. As we all know, the Tata Nexon got a 5-star rating in the global NCAP crash test, and this car over here gets a new bonnet which is flatter and it complies with the new pedestrian safety norms. Apart from this, Tata Motors is also offering some really nice color options with the updated Nexon. So apart from this blue color, there's a really nice dark green shade which looks similar to the midnight green color offered by Apple on the iPhone 11 Pro. The layout of the dashboard has been carried over from before, but of course a lot of changes have been made over here. First and foremost, the Nexon facelift gets a new steering wheel which is similar to the one on the Altroz. It feels great to hold, the quality is good and the horn pads have been extended, but the thing over here is that if you press the steering mounted controls a bit too hard, you end up pressing the horn. Along with that, this car also gets a fully digital instrument cluster which is similar to the one on the updated Tiago and the Tigor. The cluster is easy to read, but it looks and feels a bit basic, and I think the one on the Altroz and the Nexon EV looks much more better and premium. Now this cluster also gets a digital tachometer, but I think the layout of the tachometer could have been slightly better. Overall quality levels inside the cabin are quite good. In terms of storage spaces, well, just like the older Nexon, this one also gets a limited number of cubby holes at the front, so there's no space to keep your phone, your keys, your wallet or any other small thing. But of course, these doors come with bottle holders as well as umbrella holders, and there's some space to keep stuff over here. The center console doesn't get space to keep anything over here because there's a 12-volt charging socket and a USB port. And this is the selector for the drive modes, and it is quite big in size, but it looks and feels chunky. Along with that, there's an armrest over here. The armrest cannot be slid back and forth, but it can be opened, and that also reveals a small storage space below it. In terms of features, this updated Nexon comes with automatic headlamps, automatic wipers, this really nice sunroof, finally a factory fitted sunroof on the Nexon. Along with that, you also get IRA connected car features, but somehow we are not able to test it on this car because it is not activated. Also, you get electrically adjustable and folding mirrors, a start stop button and of course automatic climate control. This car gets a 7-inch floating touchscreen and 8 Harman speakers throwing out beautiful sound, but the screen isn't all that great to use. The resolution and the quality, the fluidity could have been better. In terms of safety features, the Tata Nexon gets dual front airbags, ABS, ESP, rollover mitigation and traction control, which cannot be switched off because there's no button for it. The seats of the Nexon get new fabric upholstery. The seats are really nice when it comes to comfort and support, and even the driving position is very good. You sit really high up, you can have a good view of the bonnet ahead, and the all-round visibility is quite good. The front seats are extremely comfortable, and even after a very long drive, you never really feel tired. The infotainment system of the Tata Nexon also supports voice commands in Hindi. So you can say something like XYZ ko call kijiye and the infotainment system will call that person if your phone is connected to the Bluetooth and if your contacts are synced. You can also adjust the volume or change tracks by giving Hindi voice commands. You can also say something like मुझे गर्मी लग रही है and the car will actually switch on the AC for you and adjust the temperature.
मुझे गर्मी लग रही है.
ठीक है, AC का तापमान घटाकर 19 किया जा रहा है.
Also, this car gets a feature which is something similar to what Hyundai offers as the driver review monitor. So basically, you can click on the P button here on the screen and the display shows a feed from the rear view camera. Tata Motors has also installed TPMS on the Nexon facelift. The rear seat of the Tata Nexon is also quite comfortable and supportive. Tata Motors has worked on the backrest of this seat, which has been reclined slightly more compared to the older car, because of which you sit more comfortably and some extra headroom has also been freed up. Knee room, as you can see, is quite good. It's not all that great, but it is indeed quite decent, and the driving seat has been adjusted to my driving position. The rear seat, of course, isn't very wide, so fitting 3 people at the rear could be a task, but if 2 people are traveling, they can travel in extreme comfort. The rear seat gets 2 adjustable headrests. There's a nice armrest over here with 2 cup holders, and each of the rear doors can hold 1 bottle each, and there are some small storage spaces to keep some of your smaller belongings. Rear passengers get AC vents over here, but there are no charging sockets at this place. Instead, Tata Motors has provided a 12-volt charging socket, which is positioned below the headrest of the left rear passenger. The boot is well shaped and practical for a car of this size, but some extra cubby holes in the cabin would have been really welcome. The Tata Nexon Petrol gets a 1.2-litre 3-cylinder engine making 120 PS and 170 Newton meters compared to the older engine which used to make 110 PS. Now this engine is offered with a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed AMT. I'm driving the manual right now, and being a 3-cylinder unit, this engine isn't all that great in terms of refinement. When you start the car, there's a mild jerk that can be felt, but as you start going, the engine starts feeling a bit more refined and the vibrations start getting under control. Talking about the power delivery, well, this engine has a fair amount of turbo lag below 2000 RPM, and only after that this car starts picking up pace. This engine performs really well between 2500 and 5500 RPM, and in this RPM band you can really put the engine on the boil and gather some pace very quickly. Another issue with the low-end performance is the fact that there are a lot of flat spots in the RPM band, because of which the power delivery doesn't feel very smooth. Now compared to the older engine, this one does feel a bit more responsive, but I think the tuning could have been done in a slightly better way. Even when we drove the older Nexon Petrol, we weren't very happy with the tuning of that car as well, because again the power delivery felt a bit inconsistent, especially in the low end. The Tata Nexon is also offered with a diesel engine that is a 1.5-litre unit making 110 PS and 260 Newton meters. The diesel engine also gets a 6-speed manual and a 6-speed AMT. Now we haven't driven the BS6 diesel yet, but I had the BS4 diesel for a good amount of time as my long-termer, and I can say I was truly impressed by the engine's performance and fuel efficiency. The diesel engine has a very torquey nature. It does have a slight amount of turbo lag, but the mid-range is explosive, and just like the petrol, the diesel also gets 3 driving modes. I found the diesel engine to be a great performer when it was BS4, so let's see how it performs under the BS6 update. The diesel engine is also a lot more fuel efficient compared to this petrol engine. This car comes with traction control, but it cannot be switched off because there's no button for it. So if you're trying to launch the car from standstill, the traction control keeps kicking in, and that affects the V-Box 0 to 100 timing. But you can have a look at the in-gear acceleration timings over here, and they are quite decent. The Nexon gets 3 driving modes: City, Eco and Sport. So let's try each one of them out.
City drive mode activated.
So we are driving in the City mode now, and the power delivery is linear, and I think this mode is really nicely suited for day-to-day driving and for commuting. City mode will also ensure that the car sips a lesser amount of fuel compared to that in the Sport mode.
Economy drive mode activated.
We are now driving in the Eco mode, and this mode has been tuned much better compared to that of the older car. Now in the older car, the Eco mode used to feel very underpowered, but that is not the case with this car. Again, for relaxed driving or for driving in bumper to bumper traffic, I think the Eco mode would work really well. So now we'll switch to Sport mode and let's see how the car performs.
Sport drive mode activated.
Thank you, ma'am. So we are now driving in Sport mode, and the throttle seems to be much more responsive, especially after coming from the Eco mode. Yes, this mode does free up some additional amount of power and torque, and the Nexon does feel quite sprightly, especially in the mid-range. So if you are in the mood to have some fun behind the wheel of the Nexon, or if you want to overtake some other vehicles on the highway, sport mode works really well. Of course, driving in this mode will affect the fuel efficiency by a small margin. Now talking about the ARI figures, the Nexon BS6 Petrol for the manual version has an ARI figure of 17.4 km per litre, while the AMT version has a figure of 16 km per litre. So out in the real world driving conditions, you can expect around 10 to 11 km per litre while driving in the city, and this number could go up as you go out on the highways. I'm driving the manual variant and the gearbox is nicely calibrated to the engine, but the throws are long and the gear lever itself is quite long. Now the release action of the clutch isn't very smooth and progressive, so it feels a bit snappy, and that affects the driving experience when you're constantly driving in bumper to bumper traffic where you frequently need to use the clutch pedal and the gear lever. The previous Nexon was known for its stellar ride quality, and this one is no different. Of course, the setup of the suspension is very good and this car just glides over potholes and bad roads with ease. At low speeds, the ride is a bit stiff, but it does not get uncomfortable. In fact, it is quite comfy, and as the speeds increase, as you go out on empty roads or on the highways, the ride does become fantastic. This car offers very good body control, and it does feel very mature and confident when you're driving fast or when you're taking on the twisties. The ground clearance of the Nexon is good enough for driving on bad roads, and the tires also offer a very good amount of grip. The steering is very nicely matched to the car, and it weighs up beautifully out on the highways. The handling of the Nexon is quite good by compact SUV standards, and the ride and handling balance is probably one of the best in this segment. Now the Nexon gets drum brakes at the rear and discs at the front, of course, and the braking performance is very good. The pedal also has a very good amount of bite. The Tata Nexon has always been a very good car, and this updated model is indeed way better because of all the important changes that have been done. The Nexon now gets a very impressive feature list. It gets both petrol and diesel engines, both are offered with a manual or an AMT, and yes, the tuning of the petrol engine could have been slightly better, but there are no major reasons to dislike this car, thus making it one of the strongest contenders in the compact SUV segment. Thank you guys for watching this video. Do let me know in the comment section below what do you think about the 2020 Tata Nexon, and don't forget to subscribe to the MotorBeam channel.